Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the jungle, literally. You're barefoot, standing at the edge of the Yucatan rainforest, sweat trickling down your back, and there's something squishy between your toes that you hope is just moss. In front of you, a man in a feathered headdress kneels solemnly before a small stone altar. In his hands, a handful of wrinkled, reddish-brown seeds. He looks at them like they're sacred. Spoiler, they kind of are. You're about to witness something rare, something that no one in your own time would give a second glance. The offering of the first cacao beans. You'd think this was the moment someone said, "Hey, what if we made chocolate?" But it's not that romantic. This isn't a dessert. Not yet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, what city are you in, and what time is it as you're listening? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You follow a narrow path shaded by tall ceiba trees, the kind the Maya believed connected heaven, earth, and the underworld. There's a faint smell of roasted something in the air. Maybe bark, maybe burnt corn. The village you approach is small but orderly. Homes are made of thatched roofs and mud brick walls. People move with purpose, some grinding maize, others weaving. But one little group, just outside the central plaza, is buzzing with excitement around a small clay pot. Someone offers you a sip. You hesitate. The color is deep brown, almost black, and it's steaming like a potion. You sip, and instantly regret it. It's bitter, not just dark chocolate, bitter. We're talking, who did this to my tongue, bitter. There's also chili in there. And maybe, cornmeal. It's grainy, earthy, and somehow both hot and cold at the same time. Congratulations, you've just tasted cacao, the original chocolate drink. And no, it's nothing like a Swiss Miss packet. Now, here's the twist, the people here don't drink this because they love it. Not exactly. They drink it because it's important. Cacao isn't just a food, it's a symbol. Of status, of life, of divine favor. Some say it was the drink of the gods. Others claim it was used to commune with ancestors. Historians, they're still debating whether the Maya really consumed it daily or just on ritual occasions. Either way, it's kind of like ancient Red Bull, energizing, ceremonial, and hard to gulp down without wincing. You watch as someone grinds roasted cacao beans on a stone metot. The paste is thick and oily, and it smells complex. Not sweet. There's no sugar here. Sugar won't arrive until the Spanish stir, and by then, the world of chocolate will be flipped upside down. But we'll get there later. For now, it's all about process. After grinding, they mix in water, warm or cold depending on the occasion, then pour it between vessels to froth it up. Froth was a big deal. The frothier, the better. Some believed the bubbles held spiritual power. You wonder how this would play out in a modern coffee shop. Probably with a lot of oat milk. And here's a fun fact, in some ceremonies, blood was added to the drink. Yes, blood, usually from ritual bloodletting, which, if you're lucky, you won't be asked to participate in tonight. It's one of those things we call highly context-dependent. You stroll through the plaza and notice children playing, old women pounding corn, and somewhere in the distance, the steady beat of drums. Life moves in rhythm here. And cacao, it's part of that rhythm. Births, deaths, marriages, negotiations, cacao is always there, lurking in the background like a quiet but demanding guest. You sit under a tree, watching as another batch of the bitter drink is passed around. You've had 2 sips now, and honestly, it's growing on you. No, wait, that's just your mouth going numb. Still, there's something comforting about it. Like you're participating in a very old conversation. The sun is barely up when you're gently nudged awake by the rhythmic thud of pestle against mortar. You sit up on your woven mat, rubbing your eyes, only to find yourself surrounded by the quiet efficiency of a Maya morning. Smoke curls from a distant hearth, birds chatter above your head, and someone nearby is already grinding cacao beans by hand, again. Because this isn't a treat. It's the economy. Here in the classic Maya period, cacao is more than just a beverage, it's money. And you, lucky time traveler, are about to step into the bewildering world of bean-based banking. Someone hands you a small pouch. Inside, about 20 cacao beans, slightly shiny, oddly fragrant, and surprisingly lightweight. These are your currency now. Don't lose them. No pressure. Your first stop, the marketplace. It's a lively affair, part trade bazaar, part town square. There are bright textiles hung like sails in the breeze, baskets overflowing with maize, and vendors hawking everything from obsidian blades to small rodents on sticks. You try not to look too closely. And here's where things get fun. A rabbit, that'll cost you 10 cacao beans. A night with a courtesan, somewhere between 8 and 12. A turkey tamale, 2 beans, maybe 3 if the vendor knows you're not from around here. Yes, in this economy, your latte is a literal latte, if that latte is made from foamy, spicy cacao and served in a carved gourd bowl. Historians still argue over just how widespread this cacao currency system really was. Some believe it was limited to elite exchanges, others think even farmers bartered with beans. But here, in this bustling plaza, it feels very real. You stop by a vendor selling shiny green stones, jade, the good stuff. She gives you a side eye and asks for 100 cacao beans. You laugh nervously. She doesn't. You walk away. In another stall, a man is trading dried fish and shouting about inflation. Apparently, a recent drought made cacao harvest scarce. Fewer beans means higher prices. You hear someone mutter, should have invested in obsidian. And here's a strange moment, you witness someone fake a bean. Yes, counterfeit cacao. They take an empty cacao shell, fill it with dirt, then seal it with clay and a bit of ash. It's sneaky, unethical, and weirdly impressive. A classic case of fraud in the pre-banking era. There's no central mint, no receipts, no interest rates. Just trust, familiarity, and the occasional threat of divine punishment. That's right, cheat someone with fake cacao, and you might just find yourself cursed. Or worse, invited to a very unpleasant bloodletting ceremony. Later, you're invited into a merchant's home, a relatively wealthy man with baskets of cacao tucked into every corner like some kind of fragrant apocalypse prepper. He tells you, with no small amount of pride, that he bought his second wife with 400 cacao beans and a macaw feather. You nod politely and try not to comment on the exchange rate. The day wears on, and you begin to understand, cacao wasn't just wealth, it was portable, non-perishable, and almost universally desired. It didn't clink like coins, but it held power. A handful of beans could buy a meal, secure an alliance, or pay tribute to a neighboring city-state. And sure, your modern wallet doesn't accept cacao, but admit it, part of you is now calculating how many beans Jeff Bezos would be worth. By dusk, you've made a few trades, mostly bad ones. You accidentally overpaid for a hammock, underpaid for a fish, and deeply offended someone by offering 4 beans for a clay whistle that was apparently sacred. Lesson learned. As the sun dips below the canopy and the fireflies begin to stir, you sit by a fire with your dwindling pouch of cacao currency. Not exactly a crypto wallet, but hey, it smells a lot better. You're woken this time not by noise, but by a smell. A curious blend of roasted maize, simmering herbs, and something earthy that you can't quite place. Someone nearby is humming, and as you sit up, still sore from yesterday's marketplace misadventures, you realize you've been invited to help prepare the midday meal. But don't worry, you're not expected to cook like a Maya master. You're just here to stir the pot, literally, and to observe how food is woven into the fabric of daily life. Today's menu is humble but heartwarming, maize gruel thickened with ground seeds, boiled squash with wild greens, and a reddish salsa that looks like it might bite back. You're handed a wooden spoon and told, with a wink, not to let the pot bubble over. That would offend the kitchen spirits. In classic Maya society, food preparation isn't just about survival, it's a performance, a ritual, a full-body experience. The kitchen is a sacred space, overseen mostly by women who learn recipes passed down for generations, often in whispers and rhythmic songs. You glance around and see someone expertly patting maize dough between her hands, forming perfect tortillas without measuring a thing. She flips them onto a clay comel over a fire, and within seconds, the aroma hits you like an edible hug. Soft, smoky, faintly sweet. Nearby, a young girl is fermenting cacao with chili and honey. Not for drinking, for offering. Later tonight, it'll be poured onto the earth to honor a local ancestor. A quiet cheers to the other side. One of the women hands you a bowl of tamales, neatly wrapped in banana leaves. You dig in. It's warm, soft, and spiced with something floral. Flower petals, you're told. For beauty, on the inside. You're not sure if she's joking. Now, let's talk seasoning. The Maya don't have salt mines like some other cultures, so they extract salt by boiling salty river water until crystals form. It's laborious, smoky, and somehow deeply satisfying to watch. That little pinch of salt you take for granted. It's a whole industry here. Historians still debate how varied the Maya diet was. Some suggest it was highly ritualized and restricted by social class. Others believe even commoners had access to surprising ingredients, like deer, turkey, or iguana, depending on the season and their connections. There's even evidence of insect protein, yes, toasted ants and grasshoppers as crunchy snacks, served with lime and chili. You try one, immediately regret it, then pretend it's fine. You're being polite. You're also coughing. Drinks are an adventure too. Besides the sacred cacao, there's bolshe, a mildly fermented beverage made from tree bark soaked in honey water. It tastes like someone dared a tree to be a tea. Oddly refreshing, though. As the meal winds down, you notice the silence. No rush, no clinking silverware, just the crackle of the fire and the slow satisfaction of people enjoying something they made together. You're handed a bowl of maize gruel to finish things off. It's warm, slightly gritty, and comfortingly bland. A bit like oatmeal with fewer ambitions. But in a good way. One of the elders tells a story while picking herbs. It's about a god who disguised himself as a squash and taught humans to cook. The lesson: pay attention when your vegetables talk. By nightfall, you've helped prep, stir, grind, and taste your way through an entire culinary cycle. Your hands are sticky with honey, your mouth tingles with chili, and your belly is, well, very full of ancient carbohydrates. And now you understand. In my life, food isn't just food. It's identity, it's memory, it's myth in edible form. You lie back on your mat, the stars peeking through the thatched roof above, and wonder what myths your fridge would tell about you. The first light of dawn slips through the woven mat walls, and you're already being nudged awake by a wiry old man with a paintbrush in one hand and a smear of ochre across his forehead. Time to work, he says, with the cheerfulness of someone who's been up for hours. Today, you're joining the artisans. And not just any artisans, the mural painters, scribes, and carvers who shape how the Maya see themselves. Basically, the marketing team of an empire, minus the coffee breaks. Your first stop is a shaded stone chamber that smells like charcoal and limestone dust. The walls are alive with colors: reds, blacks, yellows, the famous Maya blues, all laid onto damp plaster that dries fast, so the painters have to be quicker. It's like trying to finish a watercolor while your boss counts down from 10. You're handed a fine-tipped brush made of squirrel hair and invited to add a swirl to the border. You decline. The look on your teacher's face says, "Good call." Art in this world isn't just decoration. It's communication, and every figure, glyph, and pose has layers of meaning. There's a man holding a fish. He might be a god, or a king, or a metaphor for the rainy season, or all three. Good luck. Scribes sit cross-legged, meticulously painting codices on bark paper, their inks made from crushed insects, soot, and plant dyes. You notice how steady their hands are, even as they lean in so close their noses nearly brush the surface. One sneeze could erase history. You ask what they're writing. The answer: a wedding contract and an eclipse prediction. Because why not combine romance and cosmic terror? Not all artists are allowed to create freely. Only the elite, or those trained by the elite, can write glyphs or portray rulers. Everyone else sticks to patterns, flowers, borders, polite little parrots. It's a class system written in paint. Still, even in this hierarchy, there's room for creativity. One young apprentice shows you a hidden glyph tucked behind a corn god's foot. "My name," he whispers. "Sir, I'm never forgotten." That one hits you right in the feelings. You move on to the stone carvers, working outdoors under an awning. The rhythmic tap-tap-tap of obsidian on limestone is oddly soothing. They're chiseling a stela, a tall, upright stone slab, meant to commemorate a recent ball game. You know, the one where the loser might have to retire permanently. Casual stuff. One of the stele features a ruler so heavily adorned in feathers and jade that he looks like a walking garden. Another shows a prisoner kneeling, head bowed, glyphs rising like smoke from his mouth. Some scholars think those glyphs are what the prisoner said. Others think they represent what was said about him. Academic arguments have ensued. They're still going. You're given a chunk of soft limestone and told to make a face. Yours ends up looking like a slightly alarmed potato. Everyone is very polite about it. As the sun rises higher, the artists break for a simple meal, and you get to hear gossip. "Did you see the new mural in Temple B?" one whispers. "The corn god looks like my cousin." Laughter all around. Later, in the royal compound, a court artist presents a freshly painted scene to the nobles, the king dancing in a jaguar pelt, flanked by gods. There's silence, then slow nods. Success. The artist exhales. Reputation intact, for now. One of the more eccentric masters pulls you aside and shows you a codex he's been working on secretly. It's a collection of dream symbols, snake omens, and what appears to be a recipe for frog stew. "For balance," he says. Naturally, you leave the studio with your hands stained in red pigment and your brain spinning with symbols. Every dot and line carries weight. Every mural is a memory, frozen in time, whispering stories to anyone patient enough to listen. And now you know, the Maya didn't just write history. They painted it, they carved it, they wore it like jewelry. You lay down that night next to a half-finished sculpture of a bat god and wonder, if someone painted your life story, what embarrassing detail would they immortalize? Today, your job is much stickier. Literally, you're shadowing the cooks. The open-air kitchen smells like maize, smoke, and ambition. Several women kneel by a wide, flat griddle, a comal, shaping fresh masa into tortillas so perfectly round you start to question your own motor skills. You try making one, and it comes out shaped like the Maya calendar. Unintentionally impressive, but tortillas are just the beginning. The Maya cuisine is a complex dance of corn, beans, squash, and chili, known as the Three Sisters, and not the gossipy kind from your last village stop. These staples show up in every meal, prepared with care and deep cultural memory. This morning, you're helping prepare a tamale. The filling: pumpkin seeds, chili, and a hint of cacao. That's right, chocolate isn't just dessert here, it's protein shake, ceremonial drink, and occasional mood enhancer. You're handed a frothy clay cup of hot chocolate, spiced with chili and maize. It's grainy, bitter, and oddly addictive, like drinking fire-flavored pudding. While the cooks bustle, you sneak a peek at the storage room. Rows of tightly woven baskets line the walls, filled with dried beans, chili peppers, and cacao nibs. Everything is labeled using glyphs you can't read, but you nod like you do. Classic survival strategy. Suddenly, a runner bursts in with a smoked rabbit over his shoulder and a scroll in hand, an order from the elite house across the plaza. Apparently, the high priest is throwing a feast and needs 20 turkey tamales, 5 jugs of cacao, and 1 honey cake shaped like a serpent. Make it look divine, the note says. No pressure. You help arrange herbs on the turkey platter, carefully positioning sprigs of wild cilantro and avocado leaves like you're dressing a celebrity. Then, with quiet reverence, the cooks place jade beads into the center of the cacao jugs. Not for flavor, for status. These are the ceremonial cups, and jade means wealth. Just don't swallow it. Meal times, it turns out, are also storytelling times. One cook tells you that the moon is made of burnt tortillas. Another claims the god of maize invented the tamale while trying to impress a river goddess. She ghosted him anyway, she adds with a wink. Midday arrives, and you join the workers for lunch under a thatched roof. A simple bowl of pozole, a corn stew with rabbit and squash blossoms, warms your hands. Someone passes around fermented agave, the Maya's answer to a long week. You sip. It's mildly fizzy and tastes like ancient intentions. But not all food is equal. You're quickly reminded that class defines the menu. While nobles dine on turkey, chocolate, and river fish wrapped in banana leaves, commoners eat more modestly, tortillas, roasted chili, and maybe some mashed beans if it's a special day. Still delicious, but no jade garnishes. The elite also enjoys seasonal delicacies like iguana eggs, honeyed squash, and even roasted insects. You're offered a handful of ants rolled in ground pumpkin seeds. You politely chew, nod, and immediately look for something to drink. There's also sacred food, offerings prepared solely for the gods. These dishes are elaborately shaped, sometimes dyed with cochineal or annatto, and placed atop altars with whispered prayers. You help carry a maize cake to the temple, careful not to stumble. Imagine dropping divine dessert. As the sun dips low, the kitchen quiets. One elder woman, her hands still powdered in masa, teaches you the final step of any Maya meal, gratitude. She kneels, eyes closed, and thanks the maize spirit for patience, the fire for consistency, and the cooks for not letting anything explode. You do the same, a little awkwardly, but genuinely. By nightfall, you're full, not just in the belly, but in the brain. The Maya diet isn't just food, it's a philosophy, a prayer, a living link between people and cosmos. And it's tasty. You crawl into your hammock with a tortilla tucked into your satchel, souvenir or midnight snack, undecided. Your roll today starts with a whiff of smoke and a whack of drumbeats. You're joining a ritual. But before you can even blink, you're handed a jaguar mask. It's morning in the ceremonial plaza, and already the air feels different, thicker, like it's holding its breath. You stand at the edge of a raised platform while priests in crimson robes swirl incense made of copal, a tree resin that smells like pine and old libraries. One of them smears a line of red pigment across your cheek, and suddenly you're part of the show. The ceremony today is a blessing for maize, the lifeblood of Maya society. A large clay effigy of the maize god stands at the center, decorated with leaves, cacao beans, and what might be a toucan feather. You're told not to ask where it came from. You're here to play a minor but vital role, the drum assistant. This means you sit next to the real drummer, a young man named something you can't pronounce, and help by passing him sticks, water, and the occasional roasted grasshopper snack. Between beats, he explains the layers of the ritual. We drum in 4 directions, north, south, west, east. It tells the spirits we're serious. He also adds that the ceremonial calendar is so complex that even most priests need cheat sheets. As the rituals begin, a series of chants rise in the air, sung in a haunting meter that doesn't quite match anything you've heard before. Some participants sway, others dance in slow loops. You do your best imitation of respectful participant, hoping you're not accidentally summoning a thunderstorm. Then comes the offering. A young girl walks forward carrying a woven basket filled with tamales, cacao, feathers, and bits of jade. The priest takes each item and lifts it to the sky, murmuring what sounds like poetry. It's beautiful, if a bit mysterious. Some of these words have meanings that scholars today are still debating. At this point, you're pulled into the circle and asked to toss a few kernels of maize onto the fire. You do so reverently, though one bounces off the edge. The priest pretends not to notice. Crisis averted. There's also a symbolic performance, a short play reenacting the hero twins from the Popol Vuh, the sacred Maya text. 2 dancers, covered in black and white paint, jump, duck, and mime battling the gods of the underworld. It's part martial arts, part interpretive dance, and all fascinating. Meanwhile, your drummer friend leans over and mutters, "This is the version where they win." Apparently, there are alternate endings. What strikes you is how intertwined daily life and religion are here. There's no Sunday, only spirituality. Every crop, every hunt, every storm has a ceremony attached, sometimes with songs, sometimes with offerings, sometimes with a full-on dance-off. You also notice the rituals aren't solemn all the time. Between chants, people share jokes. Kids chase each other around the fire circle. One elder even falls asleep during a long prayer and gets lightly poked with a maize husk. The gods forgive nodding, someone says with a wink. After the ceremony, you help tidy up. Ashes are buried carefully, leftover food shared, and the effigy gently carried back to a shelter. You're given a final sip of bolshe, a lightly fermented honey drink, and thanked for your calm drum energy. You walk home with koppel still clinging to your clothes, your ears echoing with chant and drumbeat. The ritual might be over, but its rhythm stays with you, soft, sacred, and somehow comforting. You wake up to shouting. Not angry shouting, just enthusiastic bartering. Today, you're off to the market, and the sounds of early trade start long before the sun fully rises. The village is already humming with life. Somewhere, a parrot screams. You hope it's not your breakfast. You walk toward the central plaza, where the Maya market unfurls like a colorful patchwork quilt, each stall covered in woven fabrics, dried herbs, pottery, fruits, and things that might be edible but look suspiciously like frogs. Your first assignment: learn to haggle without insulting anyone's grandmother. The market is a weekly affair, tied to the sacred calendar. Every vendor seems to have their own spot staked out by ancestral tradition. Some travel for days to get here. There are even whispers of vendors coming from the mountains, the coastline, and the land of blue bees, which you choose not to investigate too closely. You start at the produce section, where a woman offers you a tiny green fruit called nanchi. It tastes like fermented mango and disappointment. You nod politely and move on. Next comes a cacao merchant, who lets you sample roasted beans. Better than gold, she says, and she's not exaggerating. Cacao functions as currency here. You could technically buy a turkey with about 200 beans, though today the turkey looks judgmental and you don't have that kind of bean budget. You notice how organized the market is, with zones for textiles, ceramics, tools, food, and other. In the other section, you see bone flutes, obsidian razors, and a guy selling jaguar teeth from under a blanket. Totally ceremonial, he whispers. In one corner, a scribe for hire is painting on bark paper. A customer dictates a message to a distant cousin about a wedding, and the scribe carefully inscribes it using a fine brush dipped in black ink. The script curls like vines. You wonder how many secrets pass through his hands. As you continue exploring, you meet a young girl selling spirit gourds, hollowed calabashes painted with protective symbols. She claims they keep nightmares out. Just hang it near your hammock, she says. Unless your nightmares are about frogs. It doesn't work on frogs. You finally buy one. She throws in a painted bead, for balance. You feel mildly more spiritually balanced. At lunchtime, you discover the prepared food zone. It's heavenly. There are tamales wrapped in banana leaves, spicy stews bubbling in clay pots, and roasted insects on skewers. You try a tamal filled with squash blossoms and roasted pumpkin seeds. It's glorious. You also try something the vendor calls sky pork. You later learn it's iguana. Still worth it. While eating, you chat with a merchant from a lakeside village who trades obsidian tools. He tells you that Maya trade networks stretch for hundreds of kilometers, reaching the Gulf Coast, the highlands, even parts of what is now Honduras. Goods travel by footpaths, river canoes, and sheer determination. He also warns you to watch your sandals. Someone once walked off wearing his. Best trade I never agreed to, he jokes. Near the end of the day, a conch shell sounds, a signal that the market is closing. People begin packing up, tying goods in woven cloth, and slinging them over their backs. A few children chase each other between the stalls. One vendor gives you a parting gift, a tiny clay whistle shaped like a bird. It makes a sound like a surprised squirrel. You make your way back home with a satchel of tamales, a spirit gourd, 3 cacao beans, and a strong sense of having witnessed a civilization through its economy. The market wasn't just a place to buy things, it was a tapestry of culture, language, tradition, and negotiation techniques you barely understood. Also, you still don't know what that parrot was yelling, but it sounded suspiciously like a price check. By now, you've gotten the hang of village life, mostly. You still forget where the good tamales are, and once mistook a ceremonial drum for a stool. But today, things are different. Today, you're going deeper. Deeper into the Maya jungle, and deeper into the mysteries of medicine and magic. You're invited to follow a local healer, or ajman, an elder with keen eyes, hands like dry leaves, and a laugh that sounds like rain on thatched roofs. She greets you at the edge of the forest with a simple instruction: keep up, and don't insult the plants. As you step under the leafy canopy, the light changes. Everything turns green. The air grows thick with the smell of herbs, damp earth, and something vaguely lemony. The healer moves swiftly but deliberately, stopping now and then to pluck a leaf, crush it between her fingers, and nod approvingly, or, occasionally, throw it over her shoulder while muttering, "Not today." She explains that Maya medicine isn't just about fixing a sore knee or curing a headache. It's about balance, between hot and cold, wind and moisture, body and spirit. Every ailment has layers. Every cure has conditions. Your first lesson: how to recognize chaya, a leafy plant sometimes called Maya spinach. It's nutritious, but only edible after boiling. Raw, it can be toxic. You nod slowly, wondering how many test subjects it took to figure that out. Next, she shows you copal, the sacred tree resin used in both healing and ritual. Burn it, she says, and it carries prayers skyward. Eat it? Absolutely not. You reach a small clearing, where she kneels and digs up a tuber. Snake root, she says. Good for fever, nightmares, and stubborn husbands. You raise an eyebrow. She doesn't elaborate. Throughout the walk, she points out more plants, one for diarrhea, one for snake bites, another for restless legs and annoying children. Her knowledge seems endless, a living pharmacopoeia passed down through generations, mostly orally, often through stories. You ask how she remembers it all. She chuckles. The forest teaches. If you forget, it reminds you. Back at her hut, she brews a tea of bitter orange peel, allspice, and bark shavings. You sip it and feel oddly more alert, possibly because it tastes like spiced gravel. Later, you observe her treating a young man with a limp. She massages his leg with a warm poultice, murmuring words under her breath. She then blows copal smoke across his body in slow, deliberate waves. It's part physical, part spiritual, all deeply familiar to her and almost incomprehensible to you. She explains that illness isn't always just illness. It can be the result of a spiritual imbalance, a forgotten ancestor, or even a dream gone wrong. Healing requires attention to dreams, emotions, and recent quarrels with your cousin's cousin. You help grind some dried herbs into powder using a stone mortar. Your arm tires quickly. She laughs and says, "Good. Sore arms mean strong medicine." Before you leave, she hands you a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside, a tiny jade bead, a dried flower, and a strip of tree bark. For sleep, she says. And for memory. You thank her, unsure whether to brew it, wear it, or talk to it. As night falls, you return home, your hands smelling of roots and resin. The stars are out. Somewhere in the distance, a jaguar growls. Probably not medicinal. You lie down in your hammock, thinking about how Maya medicine blends science, spirit, and story, with a dash of mystery and a firm belief in the wisdom of plants. No white coats, no prescription pads, just generations of listening to the jungle, and learning when to stop talking. Also, you make a mental note: if it tastes like spiced gravel, it's probably good for you. The morning begins with music, not from birds, but from humans. You hear flutes, drums, and a kind of rhythmic rattling that makes you sit up in your hammock like a cat hearing a tuna can open. It's market day. You follow the sound through winding village paths until you reach the heart of town. There, beneath banners made of woven leaves and colored cloth, lies the Maya marketplace, an explosion of smells, colors, textures, and confusing but strangely beautiful bartering rituals. Your first impression: controlled chaos. Your second: you're definitely underdressed. Vendors sit behind carefully arranged mats or wooden stalls, offering everything from jade pendants and cacao beans to live turkeys, chili pastes, obsidian knives, and baskets of tamarind pods. Children dart between legs, dogs nap under benches, and someone somewhere is trying to sell you a hat made of armadillo shell. In Maya culture, markets were more than a place to shop. They were the center of social, economic, and even spiritual life. This one is held in the shadow of a low stone temple, where priests occasionally step out to bless a particularly large squash or to settle disputes, such as who technically owns the goat that wandered into the honey store. You soon discover that cacao beans are used as currency, and you absolutely overpay for your first tamale. 10 beans for one. The vendor smiles. Tourist rate. A young woman sees you fumbling and takes pity. She teaches you how to negotiate like a local, which involves steady eye contact, polite lowballing, and knowing when to compliment the seller's grandmother's embroidery. You're terrible at it, but she says your effort earns you a discount. You wander through the food section. It's divine. There are fried plantain slices dusted with ground pumpkin seed, grilled corn with lime and chili, and something suspiciously green that makes your tongue numb, but not in a bad way. You learn that Maya cuisine blends practicality with celebration, balancing calories and seasonings with a kind of edible poetry. One stall offers tiny clay figurines, another sells colorful feathers bundled with string. You ask what they're for. The answer: ceremonies and pets. Sometimes you watch a trader from a coastal town offering salt and dried fish, while another, from the highlands, displays obsidian blades and woven capes. You realize this isn't just a local market, it's a node in a wider trade network stretching across Mesoamerica. Historians still debate how far Maya trade routes truly extended. Some evidence suggests connections as far north as central Mexico and as far south as present-day Honduras. The goods changed hands through relay-style trade, rather than long-haul merchants. It's like ancient Amazon Prime, but everyone's walking and nobody's lost in returns processing. You pause to watch a group of musicians perform near the edge of the square. They're playing on turtle shells and wooden drums, their feet moving in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Children join in, clapping and dancing. At one end of the market, a storyteller is performing, a living newspaper, if you will. He weaves tales of heroic twins, sky serpents, and clever foxes who outwit jaguars. The crowd listens with reverence and giggles. You suspect this guy has some creative liberties going on, but no one seems to mind. Before leaving, you decide to buy a small obsidian pendant. It's cool and smooth, with a hint of mystery. The vendor says it wards off bad dreams. Or maybe attracts them. Her accent is thick, and frankly, you're too enchanted to care. As the sun begins to lower, the market slows. Vendors pack up, children are retrieved, and even the armadillo hat man calls it a day. You walk home with your bag full of food, your mind full of impressions, and your fingers stained from some kind of fruit you still can't identify. Back in your hammock, you think about the buzz of trade, the quiet power of bartering, and how marketplaces like these were the beating heart of Maya civilization. Not just places to buy things, but to exchange stories, news, gossip, blessings, and the occasional roasted grasshopper. And let's be honest, even if you did get swindled on the tamale, it was worth every cacao bean. Hey, you might think that after the market hustle, things would slow down. Nope, now, you get invited to a feast, a proper Maya banquet. Time to see how the ancient gourmets lived, ate, and maybe overindulged just a bit. As you enter the long wooden pavilion, the air is thick with the scent of roasting meats, spices, and the unmistakable sweetness of fresh tamarind. The tables groan under piles of maize tamales wrapped in banana leaves, bowls of black beans, and trays heaped with grilled turkey. You notice the hosts have taken great care in presentation. Plates are arranged in neat rows, decorated with carved wooden bowls and ceramic cups filled with a mysterious dark liquid, likely chocolate, but not the sugary kind you expect. This is zocotl, the ancient Maya's bitter, frothy cacao drink, often spiced with chili or flavored with vanilla and honey. You sit down next to a local noble, who explains that food wasn't just sustenance. It was deeply symbolic. Eating certain foods during ceremonies was believed to connect you with the gods, ancestors, or the earth itself. For example, maize was sacred because it was said to be the very flesh of the gods. You try a bite of pibble pork, slow-cooked underground in banana leaves. It's tender and smoky, a real crowd pleaser. Then comes huazak, a spicy stew made with chilies, tomatoes, and pumpkin seeds ground into a thick paste. You notice some foods look strange, like the edible flowers and certain bitter greens. The noble laughs when you ask. You either love them or you don't. Like life. Interestingly, the Maya often ate insects as protein sources. Chapulines, grasshoppers, ant larvae, and even maggie worms were delicacies. You wrinkle your nose but give it a tentative try. Surprisingly, the roasted grasshopper crunches nicely and tastes like a smoky, slightly nutty chip. During the feast, you witness a ritual toast, where everyone drinks from intricately carved cups filled with the sacred cacao drink, each cup passed carefully around the table while a priest intones blessings. You ask about table manners. Apparently, eating with fingers was normal, but blowing on hot food was considered rude, as it might offend the fire god. You chuckle quietly, imagining how many ancient Maya had to suffer burning tongues in silence. Your new noble friend shares a lesser-known fact. Maya cooks sometimes used a spice called chilmole, a complex mix of smoky and spicy flavors that modern chefs are still trying to replicate. The exact recipe was a closely guarded secret passed down in families. Historians are still debating how much sugar the Maya had access to, given their fondness for chocolate. Some believe the drinks were mostly bitter, while others suggest honey and natural sweeteners played a bigger role than once thought. After the meal, you feel pleasantly full, slightly buzzed from the spicy chocolate, and deeply content. You realize that Maya dining was about far more than just eating. It was an experience, a celebration, and a sacred moment all rolled into one. You lean back, savoring the last bits of smoky flavor, and think, if you could time travel just to taste one meal, this would be a strong contender. You wake up to the gentle hum of insects and the soft rustling of palm leaves. Today is not about feasts or markets, it's about the mysterious world of Maya medicine, where plants, spirits, and doctors intertwine in curious ways. As you step into a small hut surrounded by herbs and roots hanging from the ceiling, you meet the curandero, the traditional healer. His eyes twinkle as he introduces you to a cabinet of dried plants, powders, and strange objects that look like they belong more in a wizard's den than a clinic. He explains that Maya medicine wasn't just about curing the body, it was a holistic practice combining physical treatments, spiritual rituals, and incantations. For a headache, he might prepare a poultice made from local herbs, but also perform a chant to call away the evil spirits causing the pain. You notice some plants here have hallucinogenic properties, used in controlled rituals to see beyond and diagnose illnesses believed to come from the supernatural. The curandero warns you, don't try this at home. Or anywhere, really. You're offered a sip of a bitter brew made from copal resin, used to cleanse and purify both body and spirit. The taste is sharp and smoky, like drinking a campfire. You learn that some ailments the Maya struggled with are still debated by historians. Did they suffer from malaria or other tropical diseases, and how effective were their remedies? Some evidence suggests surprisingly advanced knowledge of anatomy and surgery, though details remain fuzzy. Interestingly, you discover that the Maya also believed in a kind of energy flow through the body, with certain points connected to different organs. To reset this flow, healers might perform massage-like techniques or use steam baths infused with medicinal plants. One curious practice you overhear involves the use of jade stones for healing, not just decorative but thought to hold magical properties to balance the body's energies. The curandero shares a legend about the hero twins, who defeated death and disease itself by outsmarting the gods of the underworld, a story still told today to inspire hope and courage. You wonder how much of this knowledge has been lost or transformed over centuries. Scholars debate whether Maya medicine was purely empirical or heavily reliant on faith and ritual. Probably a bit of both. As you prepare to leave, the curandero hands you a small pouch of herbs, saying, "For safe travels and sweet dreams." You tuck it in your pocket, feeling a little wiser, a little more connected. And maybe just a bit more curious about the secret lives of ancient healers. Hey, tonight we dive into a curious slice of Maya daily life, their extraordinary system of writing and record keeping, carved into stone and painted on bark paper. You might think writing is just scribbles on paper, but for the Maya, it was a complex art of storytelling, history, and power. Imagine yourself stepping into a scribe's workspace, sunlight filtering through a thatched roof, the scent of ink and resin in the air. The scribe, or jade, holds a fine brush made from a bird's feather, carefully dipping it into black and red inks. You watch as he traces intricate glyphs on a sheet of bark paper, called a codex. Each glyph is a blend of images and sounds, sometimes representing a whole word, sometimes a syllable, forming a language that's both beautiful and puzzling. You're told that deciphering Maya script is still a work in progress. Historians and linguists are still debating the meanings of some glyphs. A living mystery, waiting to be unlocked. You learn that these codices recorded everything from royal genealogies and historical events to astronomical data and ritual calendars. The Maya were keen astronomers, tracking Venus's cycles and eclipses with precision that would impress modern scientists. Surprisingly, writing was mostly the privilege of the elite scribes and priests. You wouldn't expect the average Maya farmer to read or write, but stories and knowledge spread orally, woven into songs, poems, and dramas performed during festivals. Your scribe friend shares a quirky fact: the Maya had more than 800 glyphs, making their writing system one of the most complex ever created. No wonder it took centuries for modern scholars to crack the code. You notice small, charming details, glyphs shaped like animals, human faces, or tools, adding a playful touch to otherwise serious texts. Sometimes, the scribes added little jokes or cartoons, like the ancient equivalent of a meme. As you flip through a reproduced codex, you realize how the Maya saw writing as a bridge between the mortal and divine, a way to communicate with gods and ancestors. Writing was sacred, not just functional. You reflect on the fragility of these ancient manuscripts. Most were destroyed during the Spanish conquest, lost to fire and neglect. Only a handful survive today, precious windows into a vanished world. This chapter closes as you imagine yourself holding one of these fragile codices, feeling the weight of history and human curiosity pressed between your fingers. Hey, tonight we take a stroll through the bustling Maya marketplaces, the ancient malls where bartering, gossip, and unexpected encounters happen daily. You might expect ancient trade to be all serious business, but wait until you see the quirky side of these lively bazaars. Picture yourself weaving through a maze of stalls shaded by palm leaves and woven mats, the air buzzing with chatter and the spicy aroma of roasting corn. Vendors call out in melodic voices, advertising their wares, everything from jade beads and obsidian knives to colorful feathers and handmade pottery. You notice that the Maya marketplaces were more than just places to buy and sell. They were social hubs, where news traveled fast and alliances were forged over cups of chocolate drink or fermented corn beer. As you stroll past a vendor hawking strange-smelling herbs, you overhear a heated debate about the best way to prepare bolshe, a mildly intoxicating honey mead used in rituals. Some swear by the traditional recipe, others experiment with new flavors, a kind of ancient foodie rivalry. You learn that trade routes connected the Maya cities with distant lands, allowing exotic goods like jade from the Motagua Valley and cacao from tropical lowlands to circulate widely. The marketplaces were the beating heart of this network. An amusing tidbit, some Maya merchants carried trading tokens, shaped like animals, which functioned like ancient business cards or IOUs. You imagine how much cooler your wallet would look with a jaguar-shaped token. Historians are still debating how standardized Maya currency was, or if barter dominated entirely. Some evidence points to cacao beans as a kind of money, while others argue it was more symbolic than practical. You watch a vendor carefully weighing cacao beans on a stone scale, the precision surprisingly high. Precision like this hints at a surprisingly sophisticated economy, far from the primitive trade you might imagine. You catch sight of a group of children chasing each other around the stalls, their laughter mixing with the hawkers' calls. You realize marketplaces were also places of joy, community, and sometimes just a little chaos. By the time you leave, you're carrying a small pouch of dried chilies and a handful of stories, ready to tell anyone who'll listen about the vibrant life behind the ancient Maya's marketplace curtains. Hey, tonight we unravel one of the most fascinating puzzles of the Maya world, their relationship with time and their mind-bending calendar systems. Spoiler alert, your phone's calendar might look pretty boring after this. Imagine yourself sitting under a sprawling ceiba tree, the sacred tree of life, while an elder Maya priest unfolds a long scroll and starts explaining the cycles that govern their universe. To the Maya, time was not just linear but cyclical, a series of overlapping calendars that ticked in harmony. You learn about the famous long count calendar, which tracks vast epochs spanning thousands of years. The Maya used it to record historical dates and predict future events, kind of like an ancient cosmic planner. But don't ask them for a reminder on your anniversary, their system is a bit more complicated. You discover the Sokin, a 260-day ritual calendar, and the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar, running side by side like two clocks telling different but interlinked stories. The interplay between these calendars was central to Maya ceremonies, agriculture, and even royal politics. An interesting little-known fact is that the Maya counted zero, a concept that wasn't common in many ancient cultures. This mathematical breakthrough allowed them to create their sophisticated calendar system and do surprisingly complex calculations. You overhear a debate among historians about whether the famous Maya calendar apocalypse predicted the end of the world in 2012 or was simply a reset to a new cycle. Spoiler, scholars generally agree it was the latter, but pop culture had a field day with the doomsday hype. You imagine the tension and excitement in a royal court as priests consult their calendars to pick the perfect date for battles, marriages, or planting crops. Timekeeping was power, and knowing when the stars align could make or break kingdoms. You're also told about less discussed local calendars used by different Maya communities, showing how diverse and adaptable their timekeeping was. No one size fits all here. As night falls and you look up at the stars, you realize that for the Maya, time was a living, breathing entity, woven into the fabric of life itself. Hey, tonight we explore the quieter, gentler side of Maya spirituality, the unique approach to dreams and healing, which might just inspire your own bedtime routine. You may not expect ancient shamans to be your kind of sleep coaches, but trust me, they had some interesting tricks. Picture yourself lying on a woven mat inside a humble hut, the flicker of candlelight casting soft shadows on the walls. A Maya healer, or Amen, sits nearby, gently whispering stories and prayers as you drift towards sleep. You learn that dreams were seen as portals to the spirit world, places where messages from ancestors and gods could be received. Night wasn't just for rest, it was a time for vision quests and healing journeys. The healer shares herbs and incense like copal and sacred tobacco, believed to cleanse your spirit and invite peaceful dreams. You can almost smell the sweet, resinous aroma as you breathe deeply. You're surprised to find out that some healing rituals involved rhythmic drumming and chanting to lull the patient into a trance, an ancient form of guided meditation, if you will. There's an interesting debate among anthropologists about whether these dream practices influenced later Mesoamerican spiritual traditions or even modern-day holistic medicine. The lines blur in fascinating ways. You listen to tales of dream sickness, a condition where bad dreams were thought to cause illness, and how shamans used their knowledge of plants and symbolism to restore balance. As your eyelids grow heavy, you realize the Maya had an intimate, respectful relationship with the unconscious mind, something that still resonates deeply with us today. You feel a gentle calm settling over you, as if the ancient wisdom is wrapping you in a soft blanket, ready to guide you into a restful night. Hey, now that we've journeyed through the many layers of the ancient Maya world together, it's time to gently slow down and ease into rest. Imagine yourself lying comfortably beneath a canopy of stars, the soft sounds of a distant jungle night humming in your ears. Your breath is calm and steady, each exhale releasing the day's tension, each inhale filling you with quiet peace. The Maya believed in the deep connection between the earth, the stars, and the human soul, and as you drift towards sleep, you carry a piece of that ancient harmony with you. The stories you've heard tonight are like gentle ripples on a quiet lake, small, serene moments that reflect a world full of wonder and mystery. Let your mind float freely now, untethered by the worries of tomorrow or the noise of today. You are safe, cradled by time itself, moving slowly through cycles just as the Maya once did. Feel the softness of the night wrapping around you like a warm, familiar blanket, inviting you to let go and dream. Thank you for joining me on this peaceful journey. Whenever you need a moment of calm, you know where to find these stories waiting quietly for you. Sleep well, and good night.